The Vampire King rescued a little girl from the hailstorm, she whispered. My mom used to tell me about you. The town's annual spring fair in Hollowbrook had always been a night of simple magic. String lights glowed like captured stars, carousel music drifted through the evening air, the smell of kettle corn and fried dough sweetening the breeze. That evening, the sky had been clear, the moon a silver crescent over the blooming dogwoods. Aubrey Bennett, dressed in a soft cardigan and comfortable flats, guided her preschool class through the rows of colorful booths. Her honey blonde hair fell loose around her shoulders, tucked behind her ears as she held tightly to a clipboard with children's names and emergency contacts. Her gray eyes constantly scanned the group, counting, recounting. Luna, in her favorite pink dress and white sandals, clutched a plastic cup of lemonade and skipped ahead toward the puppet show tent. Stay close, sweetheart, Aubrey called after her, voice gentle but firm. Then the sky cracked open. It happened in a heartbeat. Thunder roared across the clouds without warning, and seconds later, ice began falling, sharp, fast, brutal. The joyful noise of the fair twisted into chaos as parents grabbed their children, vendors scrambled to cover their wares, and teachers shouted names into the rising wind. Hail! Everyone inside the Civic Center. Someone yelled over a crackling loudspeaker. Aubrey spun in a circle, counting heads frantically. Cameron, Sophia, Nolan, where's Luna? Her chest tightened. Luna? The child was nowhere in sight. Panic surged through Aubrey's veins like ice water. She pushed through the crowd, calling her daughter's name again and again, her voice breaking, eyes stinging, not from the hail pelting her shoulders, but from raw, primal fear. A mile beyond the town's edge, in a fortress hidden behind veils of ancient magic, Draven Vale felt the storm strike like a blade to the throat. He stood on a balcony of black stone, overlooking his silent kingdom, when the first pulse of unnatural weather stabbed into his senses. The clouds above Hollowbrook churned wrong. This wasn't the soft chaos of mortal weather. This was summoned, guided. Someone was calling down ice. Draven could have ignored it. He had, countless times before. Mortals brought their own destruction, often enough, without needing his concern. But beneath the sharp crackle of hail, he sensed something else. A flicker of bloodline magic, an echo that tasted like memory. Aubrey Bennett. Draven stepped off the balcony. Darkness folded around him, carrying him across mountains and miles in a breath. When he emerged from the shadows, it was onto slick asphalt and screaming chaos. Through the blur of falling ice and panicked bodies, something small and pink caught his eye. A little girl. She was curled beneath a bench at the park's edge, arms wrapped over her head, knees drawn tight to her chest. Hailstones the size of marbles bounced violently off the concrete around her, some shattering so close they sprayed her with ice shards. Her tiny body shook with each impact. Draven didn't think. He moved like shadow given form, crossing the distance in seconds. Hail pounded his shoulders and back. Stones that would have shattered bones simply bounced off his unnaturally hard skin. He dropped to one knee beside her, his long black coat spreading like wings to shield her small frame. "Little one," he said, his voice low and impossibly calm beneath the roar of the storm. "Look at me." Wide gray eyes peeked up at him, eyes the exact shade of another woman's, from another storm, years ago on a mountain road. Her lips trembled. "I lost my mommy," she whispered. "You're safe now." He swept his hand in a smooth circle, and the hail froze midair around them, falling as harmless slush. "I've got you." He wrapped his coat around her, the embroidered fabric enormous on her tiny frame, and lifted her gently into his arms. Her small fingers clung to his collar, her face pressed against his shoulder. For a creature who hadn't held a child in centuries, the weight felt impossibly fragile. Draven carried her to the nearest shelter, a covered pavilion near the Civic Center, and set her down on a dry bench. The hail continued its assault just feet away, but here, in the small circle of his protection, it was almost peaceful. He knelt before her, brushing damp blonde hair from her forehead with fingers that were pale and cold, but impossibly gentle. She looked at him, really looked, at his silver-white hair slicked with rain, his crimson eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, the sharp, inhuman beauty of his face. Then she said, barely above a whisper. My mom used to tell me about you. Draven froze. What did you say? She smiled shyly, a tiny dimple appearing in her left cheek. She told me stories about a man who saves people when the rain gets angry. I think it was you. For a moment, Draven couldn't breathe, didn't need to breathe, but the phantom instinct seized him anyway. The storm outside continued its rampage, battering the pavilion roof. But inside, something in his chest stirred. Something that hadn't moved since the night his queen died. That voice. That face. The shimmering thread of inherited magic around her. He recognized it now. The same signature he'd felt on a mountain road years ago, in another storm, when he'd pulled a young woman from a wrecked car and whispered her memory away. Aubrey Bennett. He glanced again at the girl before him, seeing the mother in every line of her face. What stories had Aubrey told? And why had she remembered him at all? He didn't know her daughter's name. Not yet. But somehow, she already knew him. The hallway outside the community medical center buzzed with voices. Nurses calling names, children crying, parents speaking in hurried, frantic tones. Aubrey pushed through the crowd, breath shallow, eyes darting through open doors and around corners. "Excuse me," she said to a nurse, her voice tight with barely controlled terror. "My daughter's missing. Luna Bennett, 6 years old, blonde hair, pink dress. We got separated during the hailstorm." The nurse scanned a clipboard and nodded. "Room 7, straight down the hall, then right. She's safe." Safe. The word should have brought relief. Instead, dread coiled tighter in Aubrey's stomach as she hurried down the corridor. When she reached the doorway, she stopped. Luna sat on a cot, wrapped in a blanket that was far too large and far too fine, black fabric embroidered with silver thread. She was chattering quietly to someone standing in the corner's shadow, half turned away from the light. Then he shifted, and Aubrey's world tilted. Silver hair, impossibly pale skin, a long coat that seemed to drink the light. And when he turned his head, crimson eyes met hers across the small room. Her lips parted. No sound came out, because she knew those eyes. She knew that face. She had seen him once before, on a rain-slicked mountain road, pulling her from twisted metal and certain death. She'd woken in a hospital bed convinced she'd hallucinated him, a fever dream born of trauma and blood loss. But he was real. "Mommy." Luna's voice broke through the shock. She scrambled off the cot and ran to Aubrey, throwing her arms around her mother's waist. Aubrey knelt, clutching her daughter tight, checking her over with shaking hands. "Are you hurt?" "Luna, sweetheart, are you okay?" "I'm okay. He saved me." Luna pointed back at the man in the shadows, "just like you said he would." Aubrey slowly raised her eyes. Draven Vale stood perfectly still, watching her with an expression she couldn't read, something between recognition and regret. "You're real," she breathed, the words barely a whisper. "I thought I imagined you." His mouth curved, just slightly, into something too sad to be called a smile. "Monsters are rarely imagined, Aubrey Bennett." Luna pressed her small hand against Aubrey's cheek, turning her mother's face back to hers. "He's not a monster, Mommy. He's the Night King. He stopped the ice from hurting me." Overhead, thunder growled, low, deliberate, like a challenge rolling across the sky. The storm had not ended. Draven's gaze flickered to the window, his jaw tightening. When he looked back at Aubrey, something ancient and dangerous moved behind his crimson eyes. "The hail," he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that made the air feel heavier, was not an accident. And in that moment, as Luna clung to her mother and the vampire king stood watch in the shadows, Aubrey understood with bone-deep certainty. The storm had only just begun. Aubrey's hands trembled as she ran them over Luna's arms, her shoulders, checking for injuries she knew she wouldn't find. The blanket, his blanket, still draped around her daughter's small frame, the fabric impossibly soft and cold to the touch. "Thank you," Aubrey managed, the words catching in her throat. She forced herself to look at him again, at Draven Vale standing in the corner like a shadow given form. "Thank you for saving her." He inclined his head slightly, a gesture too formal, too old-world. She was brave. Luna beamed at the praise, but Aubrey pulled her daughter closer, a protective instinct overriding everything else. Medical staff bustled in the hallway outside, voices calling for gauze, ice packs, blankets. Inside the small room, the air felt charged, heavy with unspoken things. Draven didn't move closer. He remained at the edge of the space, clearly aware of how out of place he was among the fluorescent lights and sterile white walls. His crimson eyes tracked Luna's every movement with an intensity that should have been predatory, but somehow wasn't. It was something else. Something almost careful. Luna reached for his hand. "Will you come visit me?" "Luna," Aubrey started. "Perhaps," Draven said quietly, gaze flicking to Aubrey. "If your mother allows it." The weight of those words settled between them like a vow. 7 years ago. Mountain Road. Thunderstorm. The memory crashed over Aubrey without warning, vivid and sharp as broken glass. She'd been driving home from her mother's funeral, grief making her reckless on the winding curves. Rain had hammered the windshield, turning the road into a river of asphalt. She remembered the truck's headlights appearing around the bend too fast, remembered yanking the wheel, the sickening lurch as her car hydroplaned. Then nothing but spinning, metal screaming, the guardrail crumpling like paper. She'd hung suspended in the driver's seat, seatbelt cutting into her ribs, blood running warm down her temple. Through the shattered window, she'd seen only darkness and rain, and the yawning drop of the ravine below. Then he was there. Impossibly there. A pale face materialized in the broken window, rain streaming down white silver hair. Red eyes glowed in the darkness, not reflecting light, but generating it. "Hold still," a voice said, smooth and ancient and impossibly calm. Cold hands, colder than the rain, gripped her arms, her shoulders, pulling her through the wreckage with inhuman strength. She remembered being cradled against something solid and unyielding, remembered fangs catching the lightning's flash, remembered his voice whispering against her ear as consciousness slipped away. "You will live." She'd woken in a hospital bed 3 days later, doctors calling it a miracle. No one could explain how she'd been pulled from the car before it tumbled into the ravine. No one had seen her rescuer. For months, she'd convinced herself she'd hallucinated him. Trauma, blood loss, grief. But small, impossible details had stuck like thorns, the memory of her body temperature dropping so low the nurses couldn't explain it. The shadows in her hospital room had seemed darker, more solid. The absolute certainty that something ancient and not quite human had held her life in its hands and chosen to give it back. After that night, Aubrey had rebuilt her life around avoidance. She'd moved towns from the mountains to the valley, changed jobs, trading her position at a prestigious school for a small-town preschool where nobody asked questions. She drove only in daylight, avoided crowds after dark, kept Luna close, always close. And she'd told her daughter stories, bedtime tales about the Night King who walked through storms and saved people when the rain grew teeth. Half comfort, half therapy. A way to process her own fractured memories by turning them into something softer, something Luna could understand without fear. She'd never expected Luna to meet him. She'd never expected him to be real. And if he was real, then so are the things that hunt him. That thought had haunted Aubrey for 7 years. Because if monsters who saved existed, then surely monsters who killed did too. And maybe they were watching. Maybe they were waiting. Maybe they'd finally found her. "Mommy, look." Luna's voice pulled Aubrey back to the present. Her daughter had slipped her small hand into Draven's much larger one, completely unafraid. His hands are cold, but not scary cold, like snow. Draven's expression shifted, something almost vulnerable crossing his face before he shuddered it away. Aubrey watched them, her heart twisting. Luna had always been sensitive, too trusting, too quick to see good in everything. But there was no fear in her daughter's eyes when she looked at the Vampire King. Only wonder. Draven must have sensed Aubrey's tension because he gently extracted his hand from Luna's grip and took a deliberate step back, putting distance between himself and them both. "You should take her home," he said quietly. "She needs rest, warm food, familiar things." "We're fine now," Aubrey said quickly. Too quickly. "We'll be fine." But even as she said it, she saw the way his gaze lingered on Luna, then shifted to her. Something changed in his expression, a subtle tension drawing his features tight. He was seeing something, sensing something. The faint shimmer of ancestral magic, though Aubrey didn't know the name for it. The invisible thread connecting mother and daughter to something older than memory. Yes, Draven said slowly, though his tone suggested he didn't believe her at all. Fine. 20 minutes later, Aubrey buckled Luna into their car and drove away from the medical center, watching the rearview mirror until the building disappeared from sight. She didn't see Draven standing on the roof, watching them go, his coat whipping in wind that had nothing to do with weather. Draven returned to his fortress as dawn threatened the eastern horizon, but sleep didn't come. He stood in his library, ancient tomes spread before him, tracing the threads of memory back through centuries. The signature in Aubrey and Luna's blood, he knew it. He'd tasted it before, long ago, in another lifetime. An oath made to a mortal family who had sheltered his wounded queen. A promise to protect their daughters, generation after generation, as long as the bloodline endured. He'd lost track of them after his queen's death, let the vow drift into the background of his grief. But the line hadn't ended. It had survived, quietly, hidden, until tonight, when someone had called down ice specifically over Hollowbrook, over a spring fair, over a little girl in a pink dress. The storm had been crafted, targeted, a test. And now his enemies knew the bloodlines still lived, and Draven Vale still cared. Unease gnawed at him, cold and sharp. The hail wasn't an accident, and Aubrey Bennett's line was at the center of something far darker than either of them understood. The fortress stood carved into the mountain itself, black stone rising from living rock, its towers wrapped in mist that never quite lifted. Inside, in a chamber lit only by cold blue witchlight, Draven Vale faced the two beings who had served his court since before the last age of mortals. Cashin, his oldest advisor, stood with arms crossed, a warrior built like a blade, silver scars crossing his dark skin. Beside him, Mirela the seer hunched over a basin of still water, her milky eyes seeing things beyond the present moment. The storm was deliberate, Draven said, his voice echoing off stone walls. Summoned magic. Old magic. We felt it, Cashin replied grimly. Weatherwork. The signature was unmistakable. Mirela's fingers traced patterns over the water surface, and images rippled into view. Hailstones falling. A little girl in pink, Draven's own silhouette crouched in protection. The bloodline, she whispered. After all these years, you've found them again. Draven's jaw tightened. I didn't find them. They were targeted. Because someone knows you still care, Cashin said. Someone wants to draw you out. The weight of those words settled over the chamber like frost. Draven turned away, facing the tall window that overlooked his kingdom. Miles of dark forest and silent peaks. He'd built this isolation deliberately after she died. After Seraphine's murder had carved out everything soft in him and left only the hollowed-out husk of a king. Tell me about the queen, Mirela said softly, though it wasn't a question. Draven closed his eyes. You know the story. You need to say it, she insisted, before you can understand what comes next. He exhaled slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. Seraphine was hunting in the borderlands when a mortal family found her wounded, poisoned blade, silver in her veins. They should have left her to die, feared her. Instead, they sheltered her in their barn, brought her blood, kept her secret from the village. The Thornwell family, Cashin supplied. Yes. Draven's hands curled into fists. 3 daughters and a widowed mother. Seraphine recovered over weeks, and in that time, she grew fond of them, especially the girls. She taught them small magics, how to read weather, how to whisper to storms. The bloodline oath, Mirela murmured. Draven nodded. When Seraphine returned to me, she made me swear, if anything happened to her, I would protect that family. Their daughters, daughters, as long as the line endured. And then she was murdered, Cashin said quietly. 3 months later, Draven's voice went flat, emotionless. Ambushed by rivals who wanted my throne. They made sure I watched her die. The chamber fell silent except for the distant howl of wind through stone corridors. After that, Draven continued, I sealed myself away, stopped caring, stopped feeling. The mortal bloodline. I lost track of them. Assumed they'd faded into history like everything else. But they didn't fade, Mirela said, her blind gaze fixed on him. They survived. Hidden. Quiet. Until 7 years ago, when you saved a young woman on a mountain road. Aubrey Bennett, Draven said, her name tasting like old regret. I didn't realize who she was then. I only knew she was dying, and he stopped. I couldn't let another innocent die. Not on my watch. And now her daughter carries the same magic, Cashin said. Luna. Draven turned back to them, and for the first time in decades, something like fear flickered across his face. The hailstorm wasn't random, he said. It was a message. Someone knows the bloodline survived. Someone knows I found them. Mireille's hands stilled over the water. The surface rippled, showing a different image now, a figure wreathed in storm clouds, features obscured, but the presence unmistakable, ancient, powerful, vengeful. Constantine, she breathed. The name hit Draven like a blow. No, he said sharply. I destroyed him 2 centuries ago, after he tried to break me by slaughtering the Thornwell family. I burned his stronghold to ash. Perhaps you destroyed his body, Mireille said. But his magic weatherwork is notoriously difficult to kill. It lives in the wind, the rain, the storms. Draven finished, realization dawning cold and terrible. He bound himself to the storms before I could finish him. Or, Cashin said darkly, he had an apprentice, someone who inherited his power and his grudge. The witch light flickered. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains, distant but deliberate. A reminder. Draven stared at the rippling image of the Stormcaller, rage and something older warring in his chest. I swore not to meddle in mortal lives again, he said quietly. After Seraphine, I barely survived the grief. If I let myself care again, you'll survive, Cashin interrupted. You always do. That's your curse. But will they? Draven's voice cracked, just slightly. That little girl looked at me without fear. She trusted me. If I stay close, I paint a target on her back. The target is already there, Mireille said. The question is whether you'll stand between her and the blade. Draven closed his eyes, and in his mind, he saw Luna's small hand slipping into his, heard her whispered words. My mom used to tell me about you. The oath bound him. Her trust haunted him. I'll watch from a distance, he said finally. Minimal contact, just enough to keep them safe. Mireille and Cashin exchanged a look that said they both knew that plan wouldn't last. But they said nothing as Draven dissolved into shadow, already gone. 40 miles away, in a small house at the edge of Hollowbrook, Aubrey tucked Luna into bed for the 3rd time. I'm not tired, Mommy, Luna protested, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I keep thinking about the Night King. He was real, just like you said. Aubrey's chest tightened. I know, sweetheart. But you're safe now. The storm is over. Will he come back? Aubrey hesitated. I don't know. I hope he does, Luna said, yawning despite herself. He was nice. Cold, but nice. Aubrey kissed her daughter's forehead and turned off the light, leaving only the soft glow of the nightlight. Downstairs, she poured herself tea she didn't drink and stared at the drawing Luna had made before bed, a crayon sketch of a tall figure in a dark coat, crouched beside a little girl in pink, hailstones frozen mid-fall around them. The image was too accurate, too detailed. Luna shouldn't remember it that clearly. Aubrey wrapped her arms around herself, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with temperature. Keep her away from the supernatural, she thought fiercely. Keep her safe. Keep her normal. But even as she made the vow, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, a low, deliberate sound that felt less like weather and more like a promise. In the darkness beyond her window, something watched. And Aubrey knew, with bone-deep certainty, that the storm had only just begun. Luna woke 3 nights later, calling for her mother in the dark. Aubrey rushed into her daughter's room, heart hammering, expecting tears or fever. Instead, she found Luna sitting up in bed, eyes distant and dreamy, a small smile on her lips. Mommy, I saw the castle again, she whispered. Aubrey sat on the edge of the bed, brushing damp hair from Luna's forehead. What castle, sweetheart? The one made of black stones, with the tall towers and the snow. Luna's voice took on a strange, faraway quality. There was a lady there, the Snow Lady. She had a silver crown and she was laughing, playing in the courtyard with a little girl. They were making snow angels. Cold prickled down Aubrey's spine. Was it scary?
No.
Luna shook her head, still smiling. It was beautiful. The snow lady had kind eyes. She looked at me like she knew me. Luna, you've never seen? She had dark hair. Luna continued, as if reciting from memory, braided with ice crystals. And her dress was white, but it had silver thread that looked like snowflakes. And the courtyard had a fountain, but the water was frozen into shapes like flowers. Aubrey's breath caught. The detail was too precise, too vivid for a 6-year-old's imagination. It was just a dream, she said, more to herself than to Luna. Just a dream, baby. But Luna's gray eyes fixed on hers with unnerving clarity. It didn't feel like a dream, Mommy. It felt like remembering. From his position in the shadows across the street, Draven felt the moment Luna's dream ignited like a flare in the darkness. He'd been keeping watch for 3 nights now, perched on rooftops and hidden in alleyways, telling himself he was merely fulfilling his oath from a distance. But tonight, the shimmer of ancestral magic around the small house had suddenly blazed, and he'd felt something impossible ripple through the air. Seraphine. Not her presence. She was centuries dead, her ashes scattered across mountains she'd loved. But her memory, crystallized and vivid, flowing from Luna's sleeping mind like water from a spring. Draven's hands clenched. He knew that courtyard. He'd stood in it with Seraphine on countless winter mornings, watching her play in the snow like a child despite her 700 years. She'd loved snow angels and had laughed that bright, clear laugh while teaching mortal children the same game. Luna was dreaming of his queen's memories, which meant the magic in her blood ran deeper than he'd feared. Deep enough to reach across centuries and pull images from the dead. Deep enough to mark her as something more than mortal. Deep enough to make her a target. Thunder rumbled in the distance, unnatural, deliberate. Draven's jaw tightened. They were running out of time. The rain came 4 days later, during morning drop-off at Luna's preschool. Aubrey was walking Luna across the parking lot, backpack bouncing, when the first drops fell. Within seconds, it became a downpour. Cold, sharp, too sudden to be natural. Parents cursed and ran for cover. Children shrieked. Then, just as quickly, it stopped. Not gradually, not tapering off. Just stopped, as if someone had closed an invisible faucet. Aubrey looked up. The clouds were still dark and heavy, but no rain fell. Around them, confused parents stared at the sky. "Mommy, look," Luna whispered, tugging her hand. "He's here." Aubrey followed her daughter's gaze across the parking lot. Draven stood beside a black car, one hand raised slightly, his eyes fixed on the clouds above. As she watched, he lowered his hand, and a faint shimmer passed through the air, like heat waves, but cold. The storm clouds began to break apart, drifting harmlessly away. Before Aubrey could stop her, Luna broke free and ran toward him. "Luna, wait." But her daughter was already there, tugging on Draven's coat. "You stopped the rain. Thank you." Draven looked down at her, expression softening in a way that made Aubrey's heart twist. "You're welcome, little one." Aubrey crossed the parking lot quickly, her fear warring with something else, a reluctant gratitude she didn't want to feel. "Luna, we need to go inside." "But Mommy."
Now.
Aubrey's voice was firm. She looked at Draven, trying to keep her voice steady. "Why are you near my daughter?" Other parents were starting to notice. A pale stranger in expensive dark clothes, talking to a child. Aubrey grabbed Luna's hand and pulled her toward the sidewalk, away from prying eyes. Draven followed, maintaining a careful distance. "The storm," he said quietly. "It wasn't natural." "I know," Aubrey shot back. "I'm not stupid. But why are you here? Are you following us?" "Yes." His honesty startled her. She'd expected denials, excuses. "I made an oath centuries ago," Draven continued, his voice low. "To protect your bloodline. That hailstorm at the fair, it was summoned, targeted. Someone is hunting you and Luna. I can't let that stand. We don't need." "I had the dream again last night," Luna interrupted suddenly, looking up at Draven. "About the snow lady and the castle. She showed me a room with paintings, and a garden where flowers grew, even in winter." Draven went completely still. Aubrey watched his expression crack, just for a moment, revealing something raw beneath.
Grief.
Recognition.
Pain.
"What did you say?" His voice was barely a whisper. The castle, Luna repeated. With the black stones and the snow. The Snow Lady lives there. She's your friend, isn't she? Aubrey's stomach dropped. Luna, how could you possibly? She's dreaming of my queen, Draven said, his eyes never leaving Luna's face. Of Seraphine. Memories that shouldn't exist anymore. That's impossible, Aubrey breathed. The magic in her blood is waking up, Draven said, finally looking at Aubrey. Old magic, weather-tied, inherited through your line. It's reaching back through time, pulling fragments of the past. It means, he paused. It means she's more powerful than I thought. And more vulnerable. Luna tugged his sleeve. Is the Snow Lady real? She was, Draven said gently. A long time ago. Can I meet her? No, little one. She's gone now. Aubrey's hands trembled. This was insane. All of it. But watching Draven crouch down to Luna's level, watching the care in his eyes, she couldn't deny what she was seeing. He wasn't lying. And whatever was hunting them was real. We need to talk, she said finally. Properly. Draven straightened, wariness crossing his features. All right, but I have rules. Aubrey continued, voice hardening. You don't enter our home uninvited. You don't approach Luna when I'm not present. And you tell me everything. No secrets, no half-truths. Agreed. And if I say leave, you leave. Draven's crimson eyes held hers. I will always respect your choices, Aubrey Bennett, even if they cost us everything. The weight of those words settled over her like snow. Running won't help, he added quietly. If they're hunting your bloodline, they'll find you wherever you go. Your only chance is to stand and fight. And for that, he glanced down at Luna, then back at Aubrey. You need someone who knows how to stop storms. Aubrey wanted to argue, wanted to grab Luna and run, just like she'd been running for 7 years. But the truth was stark and undeniable. She was out of her depth. And this man, this monster, might be the only shield between her daughter and whatever was coming. Tonight, she said. 8 o'clock. The park near our house. We talk. Draven nodded once, then stepped back, shadows already gathering around him like old friends. Until tonight, he vanished between heartbeats, dissolving into nothing. Luna waved at the empty space where he'd stood. Bye, Night King. Aubrey watched the spot where he'd disappeared, torn between terror and a growing certainty that terrified her even more. She was starting to trust him, and that might be the most dangerous thing of all. The park was empty at 8 o'clock, streetlights casting long shadows across the playground equipment. Aubrey sat on a bench, Luna asleep in the car behind her, while Draven materialized from the darkness, like he'd been part of it all along. He didn't sit. Instead, he stood a careful distance away, hands in the pockets of his long coat. Thank you for meeting me, he said. I'm not doing this for you, Aubrey replied. I'm doing it for Luna. I know. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Tell me, Aubrey said finally. Everything. From the beginning. So he did. Draven spoke quietly, his voice carrying the weight of centuries as he explained how Seraphine had stumbled into the Thornwell family's barn, poisoned and dying. How 3 mortal daughters, Elena, Margot, and Claire, had hidden her from vampire hunters, brought her blood stolen from their father's butchering shed, sat with her through fevered dreams. Seraphine loved them, he said, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. She taught them small magics, how to read storm patterns, how to call gentle rain, and how to make frost bloom on window panes. Whether magic passed through the female line. That's why Luna dreams of her, Aubrey whispered. Yes. The magic recognizes its source. And Seraphine was. He paused. She was incandescent, the kind of person who left an impression on the world even after she was gone. What happened to her? Draven's expression shuddered. Rivals. Enemies who wanted my throne and knew the fastest way to break me was through her. They ambushed us. Made me watch while he stopped, jaw tightening. I destroyed them afterward. But it was too late. Aubrey heard the centuries of grief in those words. After she died, Draven continued. I retreated, sealed myself away. But there was one enemy I couldn't fully destroy, Constantine, a stormcaller who'd been hunting the Thornwell bloodline to punish Seraphine for rejecting him. I thought I'd ended him, but his weather magic proved persistent. And now he's back, Aubrey said. Or his successor is. Draven's crimson eyes met hers. Either way, they've found you. And they won't stop until the bloodline is erased. Aubrey wrapped her arms around herself. I should have known, 7 years ago, when you saved me, I should have known nothing that powerful just walks away. I tried to make you forget. I know. She laughed bitterly. I've spent 7 years running anyway. I moved from Ashford to Millbrook, changed my last name from Thornwell to Bennett, stopped driving at night, avoided crowds, kept Luna away from anything that might draw attention. Draven's expression softened. You've been fighting alone. I've been terrified, Aubrey corrected, her voice breaking. Do you know what it's like? Raising a daughter while looking over your shoulder every second? Telling myself I was paranoid, that I'd imagined you, that monsters weren't real, while simultaneously planning my entire life around the possibility that they were? I'm sorry, Draven said quietly. If I'd known you were Thornwell, if I'd realized, you would have what? Stayed. Aubrey shook her head. Maybe it's better you didn't. Maybe we got 7 years of peace because you stayed away. That peace is over now. I know. They sat in heavy silence, the truth settling around them like fog. 3 nights later, Luna's dreams intensified. Aubrey woke to her daughter's delighted laughter and found her standing at her bedroom window, pressing small hands against the glass. Outside, despite the warm May night, frost had crystallized across the pane in intricate patterns, snowflakes and castles, and a woman's profile, delicate as lace. Luna, how? The snow lady showed me, Luna said happily. In my dream, she said I could make beautiful things with the cold. Aubrey's blood ran cold itself. She grabbed her phone and texted the number Draven had given her. It's happening again. He arrived within minutes. Standing in Luna's doorway, Draven studied the frost patterns with an expression Aubrey couldn't read. This isn't her doing, he said quietly. Someone else is using Seraphine's memory to reach Luna. To probe her magic, the Stormcaller, Aubrey breathed, testing her defenses, learning her patterns. Draven's jaw clenched. We need to teach her control before he exploits her power. The next evening, in the park again, Draven knelt in the grass beside Luna while Aubrey watched from the bench. Hold out your hand, he instructed gently. Palm up. Luna obeyed, eyes wide with excitement. Draven gestured, and a single raindrop materialized above her palm, hanging suspended in the air, catching the streetlight like a tiny jewel. Now you try, he said. Feel the moisture in the air. Ask nicely to gather. Luna scrunched her face in concentration. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, another droplet formed, wobbling uncertainly before settling beside the first. I did it, she squealed. You did, Draven said, and the warmth in his voice made something in Aubrey's chest ache. Now watch. He moved his hand in a gentle circle, and the droplets began to orbit Luna's palm like planets, faster and faster until they blurred into a glittering ring of water. Luna laughed, pure and joyful, and Draven, the vampire king, the creature of shadow and death, smiled. Really smiled, reaching his eyes. Aubrey watched them, her daughter's small hand in his pale one, and felt something shift inside her. This was the monster she'd feared for 7 years. The nightmare that had shaped her life. And he was teaching her daughter to make raindrops dance. Again, Luna demanded, make them sparkle. Draven obliged, and the droplets caught the light like diamonds. Aubrey's throat tightened. Luna had never known her father, a one-night mistake Aubrey barely remembered. It had always been just the two of them, mother and daughter, against the world. But watching Luna beam up at Draven, watching how carefully he treated her, Aubrey realized her daughter was starving for this. For someone patient and strong who made her feel special. Dangerous, she reminded herself. He's dangerous. But her heart wasn't listening anymore. Draven felt it first, a sudden spike of cold in the warm spring air. He straightened abruptly, scanning the shadows. Take Luna. Now. What? Now. Aubrey grabbed Luna and ran for the car as wind tore through the park, unnatural, freezing, carrying pinpricks of ice. Hail the size of marbles began to fall, just for 3 seconds, before stopping as abruptly as it started. Draven stood in the center of the playground, coat whipping around him, eyes blazing red as he stared into the empty darkness. A test. Another test. The enemy was circling closer, learning his patterns, measuring how far he'd go to protect them. When Aubrey's car pulled away, Draven remained behind, watching the shadows. The storm caller was coming, and this time, Draven would be ready. Field day at Hollowbrook Elementary should have been perfect. Children racing in three-legged races, parents cheering from folding chairs, the smell of hot dogs and snow cones drifting across the playground. The afternoon sun hung warm and bright in a cloudless sky. Draven watched from the tree line beyond the fence, invisible in shadow, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. The air tasted like copper, like old magic stirring. He'd been shadowing Luna for a week now, ever since the ice crystals on her window. Each night brought new disturbances, cold spots in warm rooms, frost patterns appearing on bathroom mirrors, the faint sound of wind chimes when no wind blew. The storm caller was circling closer, testing, probing, and today, Draven could feel it gathering. At 2:30, 15 minutes before dismissal, the first clouds appeared, not rolling in from the horizon, materializing. Dark thunderheads that bloomed out of clear sky directly above the school, spreading like ink in water. Parents looked up confused. Teachers herded children toward the building. Then the wind hit. It came from nowhere, a howling gust that knocked over folding chairs and sent paper plates cartwheeling across the field. Lightning forked across the impossible clouds, too close, too bright. Thunder followed immediately, a crack so loud children screamed. And then the hail began, but only above the schoolyard. Nowhere else. Parents outside the fence stood untouched while ice hammered down on the field, stones growing from pea-sized to marble-sized in seconds. A little boy went down, hands over his head. A teacher stumbled, blood streaming from her temple. Luna stood frozen near the swings, eyes wide with terror. Draven didn't think. He simply moved. One moment he was in the shadows. The next, he was in the center of the schoolyard, coats spreading around him like wings as he raised both hands. The hail slowed, then stopped, suspended in the air above them, hundreds of ice stones hanging motionless, glittering in the strange light. "Everyone inside," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Now." Teachers grabbed students and ran. Draven moved through the frozen hailstorm, scooping up Luna and two other children who'd fallen, carrying them toward the building. Behind him, the suspended hail began to melt, turning to harmless rain. He set the children down just inside the doors, then turned back. The clouds were already dispersing, unraveling like thread pulled from cloth. Within 60 seconds, the sky was clear again, as if nothing had happened. But dozens of parents had witnessed it. The localized storm, the pale stranger who'd appeared from nowhere. The way the hail had stopped mid-fall. Whispers spread like wildfire. Aubrey arrived 10 minutes later, heart in her throat, and found the parking lot full of confused parents and grim-faced teachers. Luna was safe inside, wrapped in a blanket, but Aubrey's hands shook as she checked her daughter over. "The Night King came," Luna whispered. "He stopped the ice again, Mommy." Through the window, Aubrey saw him. Draven standing alone in the empty playground, staring up at the clear sky. "Stay here," she told Luna, voice tight. "Don't move." She walked out to the playground, anger and fear, and something else warring inside her. Parents watched from their cars, but she didn't care. She marched straight up to Draven, and when she spoke, her voice shook. "You need to leave." He turned, crimson eyes meeting hers. "Aubrey, leave." Her voice broke. "You're drawing them here. Every time you appear, the storms get worse. You're putting Luna in danger just by being near her." "The danger was already here," Draven said, his voice low and hard. "That storm would have happened whether I was present or not. The only difference is that now, your daughter is alive instead of." "Don't." Aubrey's hands clenched into fists. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. It's the truth. The truth is that people are staring, that parents are asking questions, that my daughter is being marked as different because you keep appearing whenever something impossible happens." Tears burned her eyes. "I've spent 6 years keeping her safe, keeping her normal, and you're ruining everything. Keeping her hidden, Draven corrected, something like anger flashing across his face, keeping her afraid. Is that really safe, Aubrey? Or is it just a slower kind of death? The words hit like a slap. How dare you? You're terrified, Draven continued, stepping closer. Not of me. Of what I represent. That the world is bigger and darker than you wanted to believe. That running isn't enough anymore. That your daughter carries power you can't control or understand. I'm terrified of losing her. The words ripped out of Aubrey before she could stop them. To monsters. To magic. To. Her voice dropped to a whisper. To you. Draven went still. Luna adores you, Aubrey continued, tears spilling over. She draws pictures of you. Dreams about your dead queen. Lights up every time you're near. And she pressed a hand to her chest. I'm terrified because I'm starting to trust you. I want you here. Too. She stopped, horrified at what she'd almost said. And that terrifies you, Draven said softly, because I'm immortal and you're not. Because caring for something that will outlive you feels like choosing grief. Aubrey's breath hitched. Yes. I know that fear, Draven said, and his voice carried centuries of pain. I've lived it. Seraphine was immortal like me, and I still lost her. Grief doesn't care about lifespans, Aubrey. It comes for us all. Then why risk it? She whispered. Why not just walk away? Because I tried. Draven's expression cracked, revealing something raw beneath. I tried keeping my distance. I tried convincing myself it was better for everyone if I stayed away. But every night, I watched your house from the shadows. I felt her dreams calling, felt your fear like a knife between my ribs. And I realized. He stopped, jaw clenching. Realized what? Aubrey demanded. That keeping my distance hasn't stopped me from caring. The words came out rough, reluctant. It only made the caring hurt more. The air between them felt charged, electric. I don't know how to do this, Aubrey breathed. How to let someone dangerous into our lives. And I don't know how to be anything but dangerous, Draven replied. But for Luna, for you, I'm willing to try. They stood inches apart now, close enough that Aubrey could see the silver flecks in his crimson eyes, the way his chest moved despite not needing breath. I can't lose her, she whispered. You won't. Draven's hand lifted, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. I vow it. I will end this threat before another storm falls. Even if it means exposing my full power. Even if it means war with whoever dares to hunt what's mine to protect. The possessiveness in those words should have frightened her. Instead, something in Aubrey's chest loosened, warmed. Her voice broke. Don't let her see you die. Promise me that. Whatever happens, don't let Luna watch you. I've already died once. Draven interrupted gently. When Seraphine was murdered. I walked through centuries as a ghost, feeling nothing, wanting nothing. But your daughter looked at me without fear and called me a hero. And you. His hand finally made contact, fingers brushing her jaw with impossible gentleness. You make me want to live again. Really live. Aubrey's breath caught. They were so close now, his hand cradling her face, her own rising to grip his coat. For a heartbeat, she thought he might kiss her. Wanted him to. But Draven pulled back, eyes dark with longing and restraint. I need to hunt, he said quietly. Find the Stormcaller before he strikes again. Will you trust me that long? Aubrey nodded, not trusting her voice. Keep Luna close, Draven added. Salt the windowsills. Draw protective circles if she wakes with frost. And if you feel the air turn cold, I'll call you. He nodded once, then stepped back into the shadows. But before he vanished completely, he looked back. For what it's worth, he said softly. I'm terrified too. Then he was gone. Aubrey stood alone in the empty playground, hand pressed to her face where he'd touched her, heart racing. Above, the sky remained clear. But she knew, they both knew, it was only the calm before something far worse. Draven's fortress hummed with activity for the first time in decades. In the great hall, Cashin sharpened ancient blades while Mirela spread maps across the stone table, marking ley lines and weather patterns. 3 other vampires, warriors Draven had summoned from distant territories, stood at attention, awaiting orders. The Stormcaller is gathering power, Mirela said, her blind eyes tracking invisible currents in the air. I can feel it building. 3 days, perhaps 4, before he strikes. What's his goal?
Cashin asked.
Draven studied the maps, his jaw tight, to break the bloodline oath completely. If he kills Luna and Aubrey in a single ritual storm, the Thornwell line ends. The magic Seraphine gave them dies with them, and my vow becomes meaningless. So we fortify their home, one of the warriors suggested.
No.
Draven's eyes flashed red. We teach them to fight. Aubrey has ancestral magic in her blood, dormant, but present, and Luna's power is already waking. They're not helpless prey.
They just don't know it yet.
Mireles smiled faintly. You're not protecting them from a distance anymore. No, Draven said quietly. I'm not. That evening, Draven knocked on Aubrey's door, a courtesy he knew mattered to her. She opened it cautiously, Luna peeking around her legs. I need to teach you something, Draven said without preamble. Both of you. Aubrey hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. The house was small, cozy, filled with the warm sense of dinner and the clutter of a child's life. Crayon drawings on the fridge, toys scattered across the carpet. Draven looked profoundly out of place, too tall and too pale and too ancient for the cheerful yellow walls. What are we learning? Luna asked excitedly. Protection. Draven knelt, pulling a small pouch from his coat. Old magic. The kind your ancestors knew. He poured salt into Aubrey's palm. Salt creates barriers. Sprinkle it across doorways and windowsills. Nothing with ill intent can cross a salt line without breaking it first, and breaking it makes noise. That's it. Aubrey asked skeptically. Intent matters more than material. Draven met her eyes. When you lay the salt, think of Luna safe. Think of your home as a fortress. The magic in your blood will answer. He taught them for an hour. How to draw protective circles in chalk, how to whisper the old Thornwell words that made air shimmer and solidify into invisible shields. Aubrey stumbled over the pronunciation at first, but when she finally got it right, a faint golden glow pulsed from her fingertips. She gasped. I did that. You did. Draven's expression softened. You're stronger than you know. Luna tugged his sleeve. Can I try? You're already doing it, Draven said gently, gesturing to the frost patterns that had appeared on the window behind her, delicate and beautiful, forming the shape of castle towers. Luna beamed. 3 nights later, Draven did something he hadn't done in centuries. He sat at a mortal dinner table. Aubrey had insisted, half-jokingly, that if he was going to keep showing up at bedtime to check wards, he might as well stay for a meal. Luna cheered. Draven had found himself unable to say no. Now he sat stiffly in a kitchen chair, staring at a plate of spaghetti, like it might attack him. You don't have to eat it, Aubrey said, amused despite herself. I know you don't need food. I can eat, Draven replied. I just haven't in a very long time. Luna giggled. You're holding your fork weird. He was gripping it like a weapon. Aubrey reached over and gently adjusted his hand, and the casual touch sent an unexpected warmth through him. Like this, she said softly. Draven managed a few bites, more for Luna's delight than anything else. The girl chattered endlessly, about school, about her drawings, about the snow lady in her dreams who now smiled and waved at her. She says you miss her, Luna said suddenly, looking at Draven with an unsettling perception. The snow lady. She says it's okay to be sad, but you should be happy too sometimes. Draven's throat tightened. She was wise. She liked to dance in the snow, Luna continued. And she had a garden where roses grew, even in winter. Red ones. She called them blood roses. Aubrey's eyes widened. Luna, how could you possibly? She tells me, Luna said simply. In my dreams. She says she's glad you found us. Draven couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Aubrey's hand found his across the table, squeezing gently. After dinner, while Luna colored at the coffee table, Draven helped Aubrey wash dishes, another strange, domestic ritual. She handed him plates. He dried them with meticulous care. Thank you, Aubrey said quietly. For this. For trying. I should thank you, Draven replied. For letting me. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Understanding, acceptance, the beginning of something neither could name yet. Luna held up a drawing. Look, it's you. Draven crossed to look, and his chest constricted. She'd drawn him in black crayon, capes spread like wings, standing between a little girl and a storm. Above the drawing, in careful letters, "My hero." "It's perfect," he said, voice rough. The signs came that night. Aubrey woke to find ice coating the inside of Luna's bedroom window, spreading in fractals that spelled out words she couldn't read, some ancient language that hurt to look at. She called Draven immediately. He arrived within minutes, studying the frost with grim recognition. "It's a countdown. A challenge. The Stormcaller is announcing himself." "How long?" Aubrey whispered. "Tomorrow. Maybe the day after." Draven turned to her. "You could still run. Take Luna and go."
No.
Aubrey's voice was firm. "You said it yourself. The storm follows our blood, not the town. Running just means facing this alone. At least here, we have you." "We could run," Draven countered. "All three of us. Find somewhere remote. And then what?" Aubrey stepped closer. "Spend our lives hiding? Luna growing up afraid of her own power? You think I haven't tried that?" "It doesn't work." Draven searched her face. "You're choosing to fight. I'm choosing to stop running," Aubrey corrected. "There's a difference." Outside, a raven landed on the telephone wire. Too large, too still, eyes glowing faintly red in the darkness. Draven's jaw clenched. "They're watching. Let them watch," Aubrey said, surprising herself with her own conviction. "Let them see we're not afraid anymore." Draven looked at her, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. Respect. Admiration. Something deeper. "Then we prepare," he said quietly. "And when the storm comes, we face it together." "Together," Aubrey echoed. Above them, the raven cawed once, a harsh, mocking sound, then flew away. The countdown had begun. The summer concert in Hollowbrook's town square should have been perfect, a makeup event after the spring fair disaster. String quartet playing under fairy lights, families spread on blankets, the evening warm and clear. Aubrey sat with Luna on a checkered quilt, salt packets and chalk hidden in her daughter's jacket pocket. Across the square, barely visible in the shadows between buildings, Draven watched, waiting. At 7:30, the sky cracked open. No warning, no gathering clouds. One moment stars. The next, roiling black thunderheads that materialized out of nothing, spreading like spilled ink across the heavens. Then the hail began. Not pebbles, fists. Ice the size of baseballs hammered down, exploding against pavement, shattering through tent canvas, denting car roofs. The music cut off mid-note. Screams erupted as people scrambled for cover. Draven moved. He stepped from shadow into the center of the square, and power rolled off him in visible waves, darkness coiling around his arms, his coat whipping in wind that answered only to him. His eyes blazed crimson, illuminating the chaos. "Enough," he snarled, and his voice carried like thunder. He raised both hands, and the hail slowed, not stopping, but fighting against invisible resistance. Around the square's perimeter, the worst of the storm continued, but near Draven, it weakened. Then, above the screaming wind, laughter rang out. Still protecting mortals' veil? How disappointingly predictable. The Stormcaller materialized in the air above them. A figure wreathed in ice and lightning, features obscured by swirling snow. But the voice was ancient, male, dripping with malice. "Constantine," Draven breathed. "His son," the figure corrected, descending until he hovered 20 feet up. "My father told me stories about you and your pathetic queen. How she wasted her power on mortal pets. How you swore to protect their worthless bloodline." His eyes, pale blue and cold as death, fixed on Luna. "Tonight, that ends." "Over my corpse," Draven snarled. "That can be arranged." The Stormcaller thrust both hands downward, and lightning forked from the clouds, 3 bolts aimed directly at Luna. Draven was faster. He blurred across the square, darkness solidifying into a shield that absorbed the strikes. The impact drove him to one knee, smoke rising from his coat. "Mommy!" Luna cried. "Circle!" Aubrey shouted, yanking chalk from Luna's pocket.
"Now!"
Her hands shook as she drew the protective symbol Draven had taught her, a circle with ancient Thornwell runes along the edge. She pulled Luna and 3 other terrified children inside, then pressed her palm to the chalk line. The words came unbidden, flowing from some deep ancestral memory. Sanguis meus, scutum meus, blood of mine, shield of mine. Golden light flared, and a shimmering dome materialized over them. Hail bounced off harmlessly. Above, Draven and the Stormcaller clashed. They fought airborne, elemental, Draven wielding darkness like blades, the Stormcaller hurling ice and wind. Lightning split the sky. Hailstones the size of melons fell, then froze midair as Draven's power caught them, redirected them. But the enemy was strong, too strong. You're weakening, the Stormcaller taunted. Centuries of isolation have made you soft, Veil. You should have stayed hidden. Inside the protective circle, Luna's eyes had gone distant, unfocused. Mommy, she whispered. The Snow Lady is singing. Luna, stay with me. But Luna's voice changed, took on a strange, harmonic quality that made the air shimmer. She was humming. No, singing in a language Aubrey didn't recognize. Above them, the storm stuttered. Draven felt it immediately. The shift in the weather magic, the disruption in the Stormcaller's control. He looked down and saw Luna glowing faintly gold, her small voice carrying power that shouldn't exist in one so young. Seraphine's song, he realized, the one she used to calm storms. Aubrey, he shouted. The old vow. Make her speak it. Aubrey didn't understand, but she trusted him. She pulled Luna close and whispered, Say what the Snow Lady tells you, baby. Say it loud. Luna's eyes opened, glowing the same gold as her mother's ward. When she spoke, it was in two voices, her own, and an echo of something ancient and beautiful. By blood and storm, by stone and snow, I claim this weather. I break this foe. The words rang out like a bell, and the storm shattered. The hail stopped mid-fall. The lightning froze. The Stormcaller screamed as his own magic turned against him, ice crystallizing over his body. Draven didn't hesitate. He gathered darkness and pushed, and the Stormcaller exploded into snow, 1,000 glittering fragments that dissolved on the wind. In the sudden silence, his final words echoed, The world will always hunt what you love. Then nothing. The sky cleared. Hail melted instantly, becoming gentle rain that washed away the destruction. Sirens wailed in the distance. Draven landed heavily, exhaustion pulling at him. Around the square, dazed townspeople emerged from shelter, confused, seeing only fragments, a freak storm, sudden calm, nothing that made sense. But Draven knew the truth. As long as Aubrey and Luna remembered him, as long as they carried the magic in their blood, they would remain targets. And he would remain their only shield. He looked at them, mother and daughter holding each other in the center of a fading golden circle, and made his choice. Whatever came next, he would face it. With them. The storm had passed, leaving only gentle rain that tapped softly against the windows of Aubrey's house. Luna slept on the couch, wrapped in blankets, exhausted from channeling magic she barely understood. Aubrey sat beside her, running fingers through her daughter's damp hair. Draven stood at the window, watching the rain, his coat still torn from battle. There's a spell, he said quietly, not turning around. Old magic. I could erase your memories, both of you. Make you forget me, forget the Stormcaller, forget everything supernatural. The wider world would lose interest. You'd be safe. Normal. Aubrey's hand stilled. You're serious. I've done it before. Draven's reflection in the glass looked tired, ancient. 7 years ago, on that mountain road. I tried to make you forget then. Clearly, I failed. And now you want to try again? Aubrey's voice carried an edge. Just wipe away everything that happened? Everything she stopped, not sure how to finish. I'm dangerous to love, Aubrey. Draven finally turned, and the pain in his crimson eyes made her chest ache. That Stormcaller was right. The world will always hunt what I care about. As long as you and Luna remember me, you'll be targets. But if you forget, we'd be strangers, Aubrey finished. Luna would lose the only father figure she's ever known. I'd lose, her voice broke. I'd lose you. You be safe. I don't want to be safe. The words burst out of her, surprising them both. I've spent 7 years choosing safe, Draven. I moved towns, changed names. Keep Luna away from anything that might expose us to your world. And you know what? We were miserable, lonely. always looking over our shoulders. Better lonely than dead, Draven said harshly. Is it? Aubrey stood, crossing to him. You've been alone for decades. Has it made you happy? Has it made you safe? He flinched. Before he could answer, a small voice cut through the tension. Please don't make me forget. They both turned. Luna sat up on the couch, tears streaming down her cheeks, eyes fixed on Draven with heartbreaking clarity. Luna, sweetheart, Aubrey started. But Luna scrambled off the couch and ran to Draven, throwing her small arms around his legs. Please don't go away. Please don't make me forget you. You're my Night King. You're my mommy's hero. You're mine. Draven's carefully constructed resolve crumbled. He knelt, pulling Luna into his arms, and she buried her face against his shoulder, sobbing. I don't want to forget the Snow Lady songs, Luna hiccuped, or the raindrops we made dance, or how you stopped the ice from hurting me. Please, please don't make me forget. Draven closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they shimmered with something that might have been tears if vampires could cry. All right, he whispered. All right, little one. No forgetting. He set Luna down gently, then, moving with deliberate ceremony, knelt before both of them on the worn living room carpet. Then I offer a different vow, he said, his voice taking on the formal weight of ancient magic. Not erasure, not distance, but a binding oath. He pulled a small blade from his coat and drew it across his palm without hesitation. Crimson blood welled up, darker than human blood, catching the lamplight. I, Draven Vale, swear myself as Luna Bennett's eternal guardian. Her safety shall be my sacred duty, her happiness my purpose. He looked up at Aubrey. And I swear to honor Aubrey Bennett's freedom and choices above all else. If you ever truly wish me gone, I will obey. But I will not erase what we were to each other. He stood, moving to the front door, and opened it. Rain drifted in, pooling on the porch. Draven held his bleeding palm over the puddle, and 3 drops fell. The water blazed, golden light spreading through the rain puddle, then racing outward in ripples that climbed the walls, the roof, sealing the house in protective magic that hummed like a song. The oath is sealed, Draven said quietly. As long as I exist, so does my protection. Aubrey stared at the glowing wards, then at Draven, then at Luna watching with wide, hopeful eyes. She made her choice. Aubrey stepped forward, placing her hand over Draven's wounded palm. The blood was cool against her skin, and where they touched, golden light flared brighter. I'm tired of running, she said firmly. Tired of being ruled by fear. Tired of teaching my daughter that the world is too dangerous to face. She looked up, meeting his gaze. If the world is going to hunt what you love, then maybe we should stand together, not apart. Aubrey, I choose you, she continued, her voice steady now. I choose this life, whatever it brings. I choose to remember. Draven's expression shattered and reformed into something she'd never seen before. Hope. You're sure? He whispered. Because I've been dead inside since Seraphine died. For decades, I felt nothing, wanted nothing. And then your daughter looked at me without fear, and you trusted me despite every reason not to, and his voice roughened. You made me want to live again.
Really live.
And that terrifies me more than any enemy. Good, Aubrey said, rising on her toes. Be terrified with me. She kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, tasting of rain and blood and promises. Then Draven's free hand slid into her hair, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home after a long, dark journey. Luna giggled. Mommy's kissing the Night King. They broke apart, breathless, and Draven laughed, a real laugh, rusty but genuine. Yes, Aubrey said, smiling against his lips. Yes, she is. 2 weeks later, Luna played in the front yard, laughing as mild rain pattered down around her. She'd learned to make the droplets swirl in spirals, creating tiny waterspouts that sparkled in the afternoon light. Look, Mommy. Look what I can do. From the doorway, Aubrey and Draven watched, her hand in his crimson eyes soft with something that looked remarkably like contentment. She's getting stronger, Draven murmured. She's getting braver, Aubrey corrected. She's not afraid of the rain anymore. Neither are you. Aubrey leaned into him.
No.
I'm not. Luna turned, grinning, raindrops caught in her blonde hair like diamonds. Come on, Night King. Come play. Draven glanced at Aubrey, who nodded.
Go, she said.
Be her hero. He kissed her forehead, then stepped into the rain. Aubrey watched them, her daughter and the vampire king, dancing in the drizzle, making storms into something beautiful, and marveled at how much had changed. Once, she'd only whispered stories about him in the dark, turning a nightmare into a fairy tale to help her daughter sleep. Now, the man from those stories stood in her yard, teaching Luna to make rainbows out of rain, his laughter carrying on the wind. The storm had passed, and for the first time in 7 years, the rain felt like home. The end.